The Great Experience, a Mercedes Benz documentation. The motor car was scarcely 30 years of age when these races attracted thousands of spectators. 15 years later, the models S and SSK were winning victory after victory. After only another 10 years came the famous racing cars W25 and W125 and their equally famous drivers Rudolf Caracciola, Hermann Lang, Manfred von Brauchitsch, Ernst Henner and Skyer. After the Second World War, in the mid-50s, Mercedes-Benz once again dominated the racing circuits of the world with their silver arrows. Another generation of drivers and cars arrived. Juan Manuel Fangio, Carl Kling, Sterling Moss and Hans Hermann took first place in Formula One racing with the advanced W196. This was also the era of the 300 SL and 300 SLR sports cars and the rally victories of Eugen Bohringer and Avi von Korff-Rostquist. In the mid-1960s, Mercedes-Benz retired from active participation in motorsport. And then in 1977, they returned. The occasion, the 50th anniversary of the Nürburgring, when they brought back the great cars and the great drivers. Racing enthusiasts came from all over the world to see the machines and men who had driven them to victory. It was a time for nostalgia and autographs. A time, too, for the super drivers to relive past triumphs and perhaps once again to pat the lean silver flanks of their long silenced cars. There, in the pit area, were cars representing every epoch of motoring history, from the Mercedes Grand Prix car of 1914 up to the W196 of the mid-1950s. 9 racing cars representing more than 40 years of racing victories. Today's computer-age mechanics wore yesterday's overalls and wielded yesterday's tools. Tools made by craftsmen long before they were born. The various accessories evoked happy or sad memories in the racing aces too. Everyone was happy to be together once again, to enjoy talking shop, swapping news and reliving the glories of an earlier age. And then the big show was ready to start, and it was a show of superlatives. More than 30 Mercedes-Benz 300 SLs in every version lined up for a spectacular race. Mercedes-Benz also provided the highlight of this historic program, a cavalcade of 9 giants from the past and 5 contemporary cars. The Mercedes Grand Prix car of 1914, driven by Hans Skyer, with a riding mechanic working the petrol pump. The supercharged SSK with Berthold Ruckwart at the controls, and its S-type predecessor, driven by Ernst Henner, completed their laps effortlessly. Hermann Lang climbed once more behind the steering wheel of his W125. Hans Hermann in the W25, which he always wanted to drive, and Carl Kling in the W196, which he drove so successfully in the past, showed that they hadn't lost their touch. Sterling Moss and Juan Manuel Fangio changed their vehicles and their co-drivers. During the 2-day event, they were among the most popular with the crowds. The cars in the cavalcade demonstrated how experience gained in racing influenced the design of standard production cars. It was certainly an experience to watch tire changes carried out in the disciplined way demanded by Mercedes' famous former racing team manager, Alfred Neubauer. 7, mobile laboratory and world record holder, with its modern and forward-looking technology, represented the current Mercedes-Benz idea of automobile design and manufacture. Nowadays, racing can no longer test the limits of a car's potential. This is why Mercedes-Benz have long since replaced the uncertainties of the racetrack with computers and test stands. The successors of the racing drivers of old are today seldom in the public eye. Not for them the glamour and the flashbulbs. They are engineers, test drivers, the technologists who contribute to the production of one of the world's top cars. The efforts needed to produce such a car are almost limitless. Every year, millions of kilometers are driven in test cars by hundreds of skilled and highly trained test drivers. Every vehicle has to prove itself, and every detailed component on programmed test routes and on the open road. This is the only way a motor manufacturer can meet the demand for quality. These intensive efforts to produce a standard production car also produce many international records. They are a byproduct of research, not its goal. Powered by a modified 5-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine, this C111 experimental coupe achieved 3 absolute world records and 16 international records in 1976. Another example is the 280E, in which privately entered teams claimed 1st, 2nd, 6th and 8th places during the longest and most exacting rally in the history of motoring, the London to Sydney in 1977. These achievements are reason enough for Mercedes-Benz to continue their efforts to reach the peak of perfection in the exacting art of producing standard production cars for today's needs. Chance has no part in these proceedings. If a Mercedes-Benz car does appear on the racetrack, then it is certainly not being driven for prizes or glory, but for knowledge and information. Mercedes-Benz maintains a constant presence in the pits at the Hockenheim Ring. The aim? To define exactly the limits of its vehicles in order to extend them. In these days of high and precise technology, only computer, test stand and test drive together can lead to the desired result. A car tuned to the needs of mankind.